I used to spend hours taking detailed notes from books and rereading chapters until I had them memorized. But here's the thing, I could barely remember any of it a week later. Then I discovered this book. The book is called Make It Stick, and it's written by Henry L. Roediger and Mark McDaniel, who are both cognitive scientists. This book completely changed how I approach learning, and it turns out most of us are studying in ways that feel productive, but actually waste our time. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you 6 science-backed techniques that helped me from forgetting everything I read to actually retaining and applying what I learned. These aren't complicated hacks either. They're simple methods backed by decades of research. Every time I read a book, I take these long, detailed notes, summarizing entire chapters and even rereading those chapters over and over again just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But here's the truth. I almost never went back to read any of those notes because it was just too much. Instead of obsessing over the notes, I focused on action. I take what I learned and immediately try to go out and apply it, whether that meant testing out an idea, using a new framework, or making a video about it. The moment I acted on it, the learning stuck. Your brain learns by pulling information out, not by stuffing more in. The book calls this Retrieval Practice, which means testing yourself on what you've learned instead of just reviewing your notes. It's the act of actively recalling information rather than passively consuming it. And it's one of the most effective ways to build durable learning, far better than rereading or note-taking alone. When you apply what you learn, you quickly find out what you do and don't understand. Real-world feedback teaches faster than passively reviewing information, and the book even points out that if it feels too easy, it probably isn't sticking. Roediger's lab at Washington University actually tested this with students and found retrieval practice improved long-term retention by 50% compared to rereading. So after reading a chapter, close the book and challenge yourself to do something with the information. Write a post, teach it to someone, try it in real life, or use ChatGPT to quiz yourself and highlight any knowledge gaps. The key is to engage, not just consume. I'll say that taking action is probably the most powerful form of testing because it gives you real feedback. Now this works great, but how do you make sure it lasts? That's where this next technique comes in. You see, back when I was an instructor in the military, I'd teach a lesson and follow up with some hands-on training. Afterwards, we would test students on the material days later, then test them again weeks later. At the time, I thought we were just being thorough in our training, but now I understand why it worked. We were using one of the most powerful learning principles ever discovered. Spacing out your practice gives your brain time to forget, which sounds bad, but it's actually what helps build stronger memory. Instead of cramming, revisit information at increased intervals. Every time you have to work a little harder to remember something, your brain strengthens those neural connections. It's like when you work out, the struggle is what actually builds the muscle. The research on this goes back over 100 years to Hermann Ebbinghaus, who was a German psychologist. I think that's how you say his name. And modern studies confirm it works across everything from vocabulary to surgical skills. You don't need any fancy apps to use spaced practice. Start by setting simple reminders on your phone or calendar to revisit what you've learned, maybe a day later, then a few days after that, and again a week later. Try breaking your notes or ideas into small chunks and just review one chunk at a time during each session. You can also jot down key takeaways in a journal and revisit past entries on a regular basis. Better yet, explain what you've learned to a friend or even out loud to yourself. I'll do this in my truck sometimes during my commute to work. The goal is to keep coming back to the material over time, letting your brain work harder to remember each time. At this point, I thought staying focused on one topic at a time was the smartest way to learn. But then I came across something that felt totally backwards and ended up being one of the most effective strategies in the entire book. You see, I've always been a one book at a time kind of guy. I thought that was the disciplined approach. Finish what you start, stay focused, and see it through, right? But this book introduced me to a concept that completely changed that. Mixing related topics instead of mastering one before starting the next actually helps you build deeper understanding. Interleaving is switching between different but related ideas, skills, or subjects, rather than focusing on just one. When your brain has to switch gears, it stays more alert and engaged. That challenge might feel harder in the moment, but it's exactly what helps you build stronger, more flexible knowledge. And UCLA researchers tested this with math students. The mixed practice group scored 43% higher on tests than those who practiced one problem type at a time. So try reading a few different books at the same time. Rotate between projects instead of grinding through one from start to finish. And when you're practicing a skill, don't just repeat the same drill. Mix it up. The book gives a great example of 2 baseball players practicing hitting. One trains with the same pitch over and over, while the other practices with different pitches. The first player looks better during practice, but the second becomes the better hitter over time. So it might feel like slower progress in the moment, but you're building a real lasting skill. After testing myself regularly and spacing out my practice, I found that my notes were still useless. That's when I realized the problem wasn't just when I reviewed, It was how I was capturing information in the first place. My old notes were basically copy-paste jobs. I just copied down what seemed important into a document thinking, I'll remember this. Plot twist, I didn't, and it was a total waste of time. Explaining ideas in your own words and connecting them to what you already know is what solidifies understanding. The book calls this elaboration, which means deepening knowledge by adding meaning or making connections. When you process information deeply, it becomes part of your existing knowledge network. Shallow notes lead to shallow understanding. Instead of copying exactly what you read, ask yourself, how would I explain this to a friend, or what does this remind me of? Summarize concepts in your own words and tie them to things you already understand. I've created a simple chapter reflection template that'll walk you through this process. You can grab it for free down in the description. Now here's something that might sound backwards. What if you could actually start learning before you even open the book? That's exactly what this next technique helps you do. When I first started learning photography, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd go out and just experiment, trying different angles, playing with light, seeing what looked good. Later, when I actually learned about composition rules, everything clicked instantly because I had already struggled through the process. Struggling to figure out something before being taught makes the real lesson stick better. This is called generation, and it's when you attempt to answer a question or solve a problem before being shown the solution. It activates your brain and creates a knowledge gap that your mind wants to close. This makes you more receptive to the real answer when it comes. Before starting your next book or lesson, ask yourself, what do you already know about this, or what do you think the author will say? You could even use ChatGPT to quiz yourself on the topic before you dive in. The goal isn't to be right, it's to engage your brain and to create curiosity. Now here's what actually makes learning stick for the long term. I started reflecting after each book I read and every video I made. That reflection became my biggest teacher, and it helped me see what worked, what didn't, and how I could improve the next time. It was also the difference between just having experiences and actually learning from them. Reflection is what transforms experience into expertise by helping you extract and apply lessons. This means pausing to ask, what did I learn and what should I do differently next time? The brain needs downtime to process information, so when you reflect, you're reinforcing what matters and you're letting go of what doesn't. After you learn something, whether it's from a book, a podcast, or a life experience, take 5 minutes to write down your biggest takeaways. Better yet, teach it to someone else or create something with it. Teaching forces you to reflect on what you've already learned versus what you think you've learned. Now, none of these things will work if you struggle to take action, so I made this video for you to watch next. Keep learning, keep growing, keep going, and I'll see you in the next video.